Well, hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. I got a tough question again, and oh my gosh, I had to sit with this one for a while myself because I feel like I am guilty of the question's answer. So I want to ask this to you. The question is, has your success happened with the sacrifice of a relationship, your health, or your personal peace? And I was like, man, I think he got me on all three of those. So I'm like, I got to find out who did this. So I'm honored to be hanging out with Wylie McGraw. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, brother. Thank you for having me here today.
Absolutely. You're the founder of Radical Performance Acceleration. So fill us in on what Radical Performance Acceleration is.
Mm. It's a byproduct of the work that I do for powerful and prominent people. I mean, if you consider the terms radical performance acceleration, people are constantly looking for the fastest way to the top of their game. But it always comes at, like you asked that question, the sacrifice of their health, their relationships, and their state of peace or peace of mind. And the work that I do is not a coaching programmer system. It's not another guru, process or system that people can regurgitate. It's not a cookie cutter thing for individuals. It's basically real human relationship oriented optimization where I spend my life giving everything to the individual that I work with. I live with the clients I work with. I travel with them. I give them who I am 24/7. I'm in the trenches as a battle buddy, like you would be in the military, battling their demons, making them look at the hard truths that they refuse to embrace or address or even believe to be true about what's going on in their lives. And that's the nature and the state of our affairs right now, is people are sweeping everything under the rug, thinking they're going to bypass and allow their demons to fester within them and still achieve that success, and then turn around and buy their way out of the pain and suffering that they're in once they've hit those landmarks of money and notoriety.
Sure. Well, and it sounds like, I mean, to me, somebody listening, that can be a big blind spot for them, I'm guessing. Like, I don't have that problem. I don't need that, right?
Yeah. I get it all the time. I hear that all the time. Oh, if I would have had you a year ago, it's like, well, why not now? What makes you think you're good now? And that's fear. That really is fear that's speaking for them. And that's the problem with people, especially leaders. The more powerful and prominent you get, the bigger your demons become and the harder it is to actually admit you even have them. And then the ego sets in and says, you know what, I'm good. And then we go find coaches that give us that semblance of control or comfort, even though we might believe to be stepping outside our proverbial comfort zones.
Yeah.
Or not. Yeah.
Wow, that's really awesome. And I love that picture where there's, because most people right now, let's face it, Wylie, are probably sitting in their comfort zone. They're listening to this. They might be walking, working out, whatever, in transit, whatever, but they're probably in their comfort zone. And, the proverbial picture of the comfort zone wanting to get to the growth zone, there's something in between there called the fear zone. And like you just said, fear is speaking for you. I mean, fear makes excuses. Fear tells us it's never going to work. So is that kind of where you start with people, is working through that chunk of that fear? Or where does this typically start for you guys?
When I'm introduced to the individual that I only work with maybe 2 or 3 people a year. And these are people who have made it to the top of their game. These are industry leaders, top level CEOs, public figures, celebrities, pro athletes. My job is to optimize and slay their demons so they can go out into the world and they can impact and influence or infect the population that follows them or respects them in a more positive manner. It starts with the introduction, and the moment we connect, they feel something different. It's not something that can be explained. That's why most people in the personal development space are on this never-ending quest. They're on the never-ending journey. They're always buying more products. They're always buying more books, reading more, consuming more. They're not doing enough removal. There's this addition, endless addition, not enough removal. My job, what I do, is to come in and strip down these individuals so I can rebuild their entire life from the inside out and the top or the bottom up to the top, so they can experience holistically what it is they have been striving to achieve their entire lives, so they can enjoy their money, because their success means nothing if they're not living in peace, having great relationships, their health is not optimal. So the fear that comes up happens right out of the gate. They feel this like connection and love towards me, and then they turn around and they also fear and want to push me away. And that's that battle that starts to rage right off the bat. So what I do is I engage with them, I spend time with them, I calibrate them to make sure they're ready to even do this work, so they can realize that the fear they're feeling is not because I'm a threat to them. I'm a threat to the demons that plague them, the stresses they carry, the pain that they're under. That's what they're feeling inside. And we need to get people that are listening right now to start learning how to discern much better when they're hiring a coach, or they're looking for a resource, or they're tuning into something that can give them that next step that they're looking for. We go back to your question, your comment about comfort zone. We think we're outside of our comfort zone because it feels a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But the problem is, what we tend to do is think that, you know what, when it's uncomfortable, it's wrong or bad for us. When it's scary, it means it's not a good fit.
Right.
So we push away maybe the resources God brings into our lives in those moments, thinking, nah, that's not the right time for me, even though that is the right time for me. And then we go seek out something we can control. And leaders are very adept to this. They like controlling their resources. They have those proverbial yes men around them and never really experience that ultimate level of success as a subjective manner.
Yeah. Well, and I had somebody on the show not too long ago, and they asked the question, what is success without fulfillment? And I thought that was really powerful, because it was like, you know, I mean, success means different things to different people. So that's where I think we start, right? There's no wrong definition of success. If your success is owning something or being something, or, you know, whatever, that's there. I don't think there's a wrong sense of success. I think what happens is like you said, we either sacrifice a relationship, we sacrifice our health, we sacrifice our personal peace, and all of a sudden our fulfillment is gone, because, you know, now we're at this spot and we're just as empty as we were all along trying to get there. So how did this start for you? I'm just curious, how did you get into this, you know, line of work for yourself?
I think I came out of the womb, I think, already built to do this, because it seemed like, as I look back over the chronological years of my life, man, I was like, wow, I was battling people's demons, you know, in my own family, their friends, everywhere I went. I thought there was something weird about me, and I thought, you know, something wrong with me and who I am. But the reality is, I was just brought into this world in a completely different package. Being an athlete, recognizing at a young age, being the star pitcher on the mound every year, starting for every team I played for, being recruited by the best teams, being trained by the California Angels pitching staff in the 80s. I had an 80-mile-an-hour fastball when I was 13 years old. So it was, the pressures of being an athlete were fantastic. You know, he's always got to show up to perform. That mental focus, learning and studying your opponent, that's baseball for you. Fundamentals, studying each other. But then there was this weird, odd, I want to say, outside force beyond that normal pressure that comes from being an athlete, where you're expected to perform and be your best, that I started to feel the contrast of. And I realized at a young age, something's different here. What's going on? And I recognized it was the suffering of others around me that was influencing my ability to stay focused as I got older. It started to stimulate and infect me inside, so that I couldn't concentrate it as best as I wanted to. And I started to feel that fear kick in. And I realized I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't good for me. But I'm afraid to face the consequences if I tell my dad no, if I tell my family I'm done. And I realized as I got into high school that I needed to do something radical, or I was going to basically die inside. And that pain was so bad that I chose, and I found myself in the world of rodeo. And I realized the seductive pull into that atmosphere that made me feel alive for the first time. And that's why I basically embraced the utter discomfort of the disappointment and the rage that I experienced from my dad and everybody else around me, that I wasn't doing what they expected of me. And I still did it anyway. And I found this enlightenment, almost, if you will, through that destructive breaking away from what I was expected to be, Dave, and found this new version of myself that had been dying to me, this wild side of Wylie. And I realized as I stepped into the fear of the unknowns, that's where I became more alive. That's where more of my power was becoming unleashed. That's where my focus, intuition, feelings, emotions, and mindset changed. So I started to seek out more environments like that. And it just progressed into the military, serving in combat and being in combat as a leader, figuring out what my skills were, seeing the blind spots in other people as we were performing, and being able to poke at them and say, hey, here's why you're actually doing that. Here's how we can improve it, making them experience the eruptions of their own stresses in the moment, so we can actually move through that together as a team, function at a high freaking caliber, get the job done. And then as I got out of the military, I wanted to slay my own demons and get to a place of my own personal peace first, build something around that, and go out to the world and see where I can impact other people's lives in the same manner.
Wow, that is a
Yeah.
mouthful, my friend. Thank you for
Yes.
sharing that.
Of
Wow.
course.
And I think it's fun. I mean, I don't know if I wrote down the word. I don't know if you said it, but you found comfort in bull riding. I mean, it's like that's
Yeah.
like an oxymoron right
It
there.
is.
There's
It is.
nothing comfortable about
Yeah.
watching that. So,
Well, that's I got asked that question the other day. How is it you even got comfortable in that world? I don't think I was ever actually comfortable in that
okay.
world. I think when I use that term comfort, it is a state of inner peace, knowing that even though I feel uncomfortable every time I get on the back of that animal to ride in whatever jackpot or competition I've signed up for, or whether I'm training, there's a chance you can get hurt, you can get killed. You don't think about those things. So I think you find that peace in that discomfort, and that becomes your new level of comfort. So you realize, you know what? Discomfort's a good thing. It's necessary. It's divine if you think about it, because it allows us to actually know thyself and get into a place of really knowing what we're capable of. But people are afraid to know themselves. We say it in our heads in concept. It's all concept. So we chase the idea of it versus really knowing what that looks like. And until you're put in these radical, unforgiving situations, you're never really going to know 100% of what you are capable of. And I spoke to a just retired professional baseball player recently. He said, you know what? We are all playing at like 60% of our true performance capabilities because of the pain we're all in, because we've climbed that ladder of being these multimillionaires and expected to be these stars. But the owners of teams, they keep us limited as well because they themselves are limited. And it just becomes this perpetual state of dysfunction that nobody ever gets to rise to the true top of who they are, what they're meant to do. So that's why bull riding became comfortable for me. And in the military, I became comfortable in war because I realized, you know what? This is where I'm becoming my best. I'm focused, taking the energy behind this and using it for an asset versus a detriment to my performance.
Wow. Well,
Yeah,
thank you for your service. Three
absolutely.
tours with the Army.
Yeah.
Holy cow. I mean, that's I can't even I begin to identify with what that must be like. So thank you
You're welcome.
again for doing that for us. I'm curious because you talk about the blind spots of others, and actually my next book I'm working on right now is a business fable on blind spots. And the interesting thing is that it seems easy to point out other people's blind spots. But I feel like it's really hard to receive that from somebody.
Sure.
I mean, do you see that when you're working with somebody where they could be resistant? Is the kind of the first reaction to doubt that I don't have that, you have it worse? I mean, is there that justification that tends to happen right away?
That's a girl. I don't have that, you have it. And it's, you know, it's funny. I've had people, that's why when I calibrate people that are
Yeah,
potentially going to be a client, I sometimes will spend months with them before I even ask them to write a check or even we jump into the relationship together.
sure,
Because the moment that happens, I'm living with them, I'm traveling with them 24/7 in their life, right by their side. So they can't hide those proverbial blind spots from
yeah,
me. And
yeah,
there's no stone left unturned. There's nothing off limits for me. I don't, this is not therapy. This is not coaching. This is not more systems and processes. This is not, you know, doing what you think you want to get done. Hey, focus on my business, you know, growth over here. It's like, no, I'm going to go after the ugly things you actually haven't looked at. Your therapist won't even touch. And
sure,
that's okay. But that's what the nature of the relationship's all about. They do resist it right out of the gate. They go, you know, well, maybe I'm in your life to teach you something too. And it's like, okay, that's not how this works. Okay. The reason why you're experiencing that reaction when you actually meet something that's really meant to change you is because of your fear. That is a blind spot. When you start to poke at the other individual because you feel something rattling within you, you need to slow down, stop, and discern what it is you're actually feeling, why you think you should tell Wylie or anybody else at that level, go, you know what? Maybe it's you. Maybe I'm here for you. And consider the dynamic first. And I think that's the problem with human beings is they look at all human beings as we're all in the same playing field, we're all on the same level,
sure,
and you've got your problems too, and I've got my problems, because the world teaches us that some as people are always battling something we don't see. You hear that, you see it on t-shirts, and it's all garbage. At the end of the day, people are at different states and different levels of their own lives and individual performance. Some people are truly living from a place of peace. And if they come into your life and they're showcasing something and it's making you feel, I don't like the way this guy sounds or what he's saying to me or what he's making me feel, maybe I need to share that with him because he's doing it wrong based on how the indoctrination of
sure,
personal development has been in my life.
right,
Slow down and discern the difference. Start removing thought processes that make you think that you need to poke at someone when you feel the way and go, wait a minute, let me take a moment, slow myself down and consider why this person's here, what is going on in my life right now that I'm experiencing this, so I can figure out if this is in fact my next step, or it's just an opportunity for me to address a blind spot that I'm unwilling to look at.
Well, and I think you just irritated a bunch of people because you
Sure
used the
did.
word slow down, okay? And those are like what entrepreneur listening right now is like, yes, I can't wait to sit and do nothing, right?
It's
I
not,
mean,
that's, yep.
that's their mind, right? I mean, what you
That's
just
not
hear
what I'm,
you hear slow down and it means, oh my gosh, go for a weekend and do absolutely nothing.
that's not even what I'm saying. And I'm glad I'm stepping on toes, because good. If you feel it and you want to say screw Wylie, that's fine. Go ahead and
Yeah.
say it. Slow down. Take
Yeah.
a moment, go, why am I actually reacting to what Wylie, Dave are saying right now? Why am I having this moment? Slowing down doesn't mean stopping. It
Right.
doesn't mean quitting. It means slowing down to embrace what's really going on in the moment. Because in the military, when we're doing weapons marksmanship and fundamentals, we talk about slow is smooth, smooth is fast. The only way we become experts at what we do in combat arms, so we can go be the tip of the spear and fight in wars, and why we're so efficient and proficient in doing that as well, is because we slow down our weapons marksmanship fundamentals so that we can become lethally fast naturally. There's no rush to get there.
Sure.
And the slower you become in your methodical approach to what you're doing, the faster you become in the results you create. But that's the problem. Entrepreneurs are trying to make money. They're trying to scale. They're trying to grow. And they're leaving behind the elements of being a human being.
Right.
Good relationships, great health, peace of mind, satisfaction, fulfillment, being able to go to bed at night, resting well without being fried or burned out. And they're going, you know what? That's normal. I have to sacrifice to get here. And that's the problem. Stop,
Sure.
slow down, reevaluate.
Well, and I think so. I'm a black and white thinker, and I was born and raised that way. I don't know if I was born that way or if I was raised that way. I don't know where it came from. But for me, Wylie, it's black or white, right? So I have two speeds. There's either, a million miles an hour or there's stop. And so that's where you people are thinking, I'm going a million miles an hour. You're telling me to stop. And it's like, no, you know what? There's this middle where people get uncomfortable because there's no gray in my life. It's either black or white. So I'm learning as I get older that there's some gray here.
Yeah.
So for people listening, hopefully that will bring some relief for you.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that, we just went through this. I live part-time in Milwaukee, so I get to follow this whole Aaron Rodgers thing, and the guy spent like 4 days in the pitch dark, apparently. I don't know. I don't follow it that close, but that's what people listening, Wylie, some of them are thinking is like, I got to go find a cabin, and I got to stop, and I have, I got bills to pay. I got, right? Sure. So how do you help people in that spot? Because again, there's black or white and there's in the middle. I mean, that's kind of a revelation for people to realize there's a middle, isn't that?
Yeah. Let me add one thing to your audience right now. Consider driving on the highway. When you're driving 90 miles an hour on the highway, you stepping on the gas, you're feeling good about the car, and then you have traffic. The first thing that I got taught in driving school was don't slam on your brake. Let up off the gas, let the car naturally slow down. Sometimes when you're pacing people, all you need to do is just let off the gas for a second. Your car will naturally slow down 10 miles an hour, just enough so you can pull off the back end of that car that's in front of you. And then you step back on the gas and you kind of go back into the flow.
Sure.
What people do as an analogy is we're stepping on the gas. We see obstacle ahead, slam on brakes, right? Jerk everybody in the car, step on the gas, take off, slam on brakes. Nobody lets off the gas first with their foot, and then evaluating whether or not you need to add pressure to the brakes to support that slowdown so you can get back into the flow. That's one piece I wanted to add to what you just said. The other thing is what happens is most people, they build up this idea that they're busier than they really are. Everybody nowadays is just so busy, and that's utter nonsense. You create a story in your head of busy because you are projecting so much of your own stress, anxiety, and fear about the future that you're not in the present and you're not being in the moment about who you are and what you're creating. You get lost in the weeds. So you are stressed out. I had a public figure I worked with years ago, a PR person we knew introduced me to him. She said he's at his wit's end. He's been doing this for 30 years, big name guy. He doesn't know what to do. He's burned out. He's fried. His relationships are suffering. He's about to crash. He's about to just close it all down and basically, nearly kill himself, if you will, proverbially speaking. And when I talked to him for the first time, he said he had 2 schedules. And he was so busy, he couldn't make any time for me to stop by his place so we can have a conversation. And I told him, you know what? Understood. Good luck. And his reaction to me pulling out that life that life raft, if you
Yep.
will, that I was showing up.
Yep.
He reached back. I said, no, I can make time for you. And when I got to his place, we ended up spending 5 hours together that
Wow.
weekend. And I thought, and I asked him, I said, where are your two schedules at? He goes, I am so fried that I think I have more on my plate than I do. That's how bad my mindset has gotten.
Sure.
This is what an entrepreneur's problem is. This is what leaders' problems are. They think they're busier than they are, and that's not true at all. And
Wow.
that's why they sacrifice, because they are so focused on the wrong things. They're not stripping down enough there, and they just keep, okay, what other book can I read? What other coach can I hire? How many more systems can I add to my business? And then that's where they get lost. And they realize I've consumed far more than I've removed, and I'm stuffed up, I'm bloated, and I'm burned out. And I think I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And therefore my life is not. So they chase that. And then they get 30 years later, they look back and go, what have I done?
Yeah. Wow.
Why am I miserable? Why am I suffering still?
Yep. Wow.
Yep.
That's really powerful. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. I was, thinking about your car analogy and my car analogy, and I was thinking about when I recently watched a little bit of NASCAR, and there was a huge accident, and they had the in camera of the guy. And when he was getting into the accident, Wylie, he took his hands off of the steering wheel, because the announcer said, if you hold on, you could potentially break your arms. Right. And it's just like, wow, I'm thinking about that. I'm like, man, that is so powerful in thinking about our blind spots and trying to control that and in everything, our success. It's hard to take your hands off of the wheel. And so,
it's hard to trust others as well to support you so that you can take your hands off the wheel. And I think that's where we've gotten so jaded with, again, the personal development space, business development, leadership development, the things that I see that are massive gaps in their abilities. When I got in the military first, I never really got into the following people and like looking and emulating or trying to regurgitate their philosophies, because I realized their limitations too. But what's happening here is that industry has become richer, more wealthier in finances, and people have become more stuck. And it's like, why is the industry growing yet people are chasing? And that's where you realize what is the massive blind spot in there, is because people are being taught to grip. Grip. If you keep gripping, and then the more jaded you become, because a coach will take $100,000 from you, and then you'll be left with like, okay, I got some cool things, I got some new ideas, but I still don't feel I got really where I wanted to go. Now I'm $100,000 out of the pocket, so I got to go spend another $100,000. And I'm talking at that level with like bigger people, leaders that spend that kind of money. Okay, I spent $1 million. I had a guy said I spent $3 million on personal development, and I'm still in pain. I'm like, okay, well, that's not good. Jeez. So you see how we get jaded. So how do you trust the next person that comes into your life? That's where discernment plays a key component. That's where realizing I'm gripping on that car steering wheel, I could break my arms in the wreck. Learning how to open up the hands and let go a little bit, because I've watched NASCAR too. Those cages are designed for them to let go and trust the support that's around them to basically take the brunt of everything, so they can figure out what's going on with themselves and they can make it through that wreck. But human beings want to grip, and we grip tighter, and especially men, we're just taught to hold on tighter, don't let go, and we end up breaking at the end of the day, and then we blame everything outside of ourselves.
Well, it's easy to blame now, dude. It's easy to blame the government. It's easy to blame the competitor, the customer, my team, my industry, right? I mean, it's super easy. The weather,
it's the economy, it's inflation. It has nothing to do with maybe the stress that I'm under and how that's influencing my decision making, how that's impacting my ability to perform as a good leader. It's infecting people without us realizing. And this is what's happening in our society. Social media is a massive black hole for people to infect one another, and nobody is stopping to go, wait a minute. Why are our leaders allowing people to act this way? Why are they influencing people to act this? Because they themselves have their own blind spots. They themselves are battling their own demons, and they're not willing to say, you know what, let me let go. Let me let in people that can make me better, so that I can influence the population in a completely different way. And around and around we go.
Well, and there were 3 words that you finished that sentence with, that if your success is, if success created those sacrifices, then you've actually failed. I mean, you went out to say you've actually failed. So here someone's listening and they have success in their mind, but they look back and they see like, a road of carnage that, has been because of that. And for a lot of people, I'm guessing, here, Wiley, the end justifies the means, right? I had to do that. I had to not be there for my kids, or I had to, whatever that is. So how do you combat that? I mean, do you just basically call a BS card on them and say no? Or is there like a path for people that really truly think that that is okay to have those people do that?
Um, Going back to your analogy with the carnage, I love that. You look back and go, look at the road of carnage I left. I think that's the biggest thing is people are afraid to turn around and look back and see what they've left in their wake.
Right.
But when they get called out on it, the first reaction of human nature is to reject it, like we talked about earlier in the conversation. Nope, that's not me. That's your perspective. That's just your opinion. And we have this world now where everything is now just someone else's opinion or perspective. There's no truth anymore. There's no, who are you to tell me anything? Mind your own business.
Right.
Maybe you've got crap in your life. So who are you to judge me? And I had a guy say that. Who are you to judge me? I said, I'm just, maybe we all judge each other. So what I'm saying to you is, I don't like your communication. I recognize why you're suffering in your life, because I'm experiencing firsthand the communication problems you're having. So I'm addressing it head on, and I'm telling you the truth. You may not like that truth, but I'm still going to make you swallow it, because at the end of the day, this is why you're failing. This is why you're having problems. And it's the trail of carnage from your communication failures. I'm only the first person who's putting it in your face. Everybody else will just stroke you and tell you, no, it's okay. You'll get there when you're ready. Your therapist will coddle you and tell you, you know what, figure it out when you're on your own time, when it feels right. And it's stop with the feelings. Detach from that and realize, you know what, I need someone to kick me in between the legs where it doesn't, the sun doesn't shine. I need someone to address the truth. And I got to be willing to sit with that for a moment and feel the pain of it and go, you know what, oof, this person actually gives a crap about me. Let me listen to that. Success itself should be defined by how well you're living your life. We should have a set point definition for it, and then everything else being subjective from there. Because if you are living your life from a place of balance, peace, optimization, unsexy words, right? Out in the world, it's unsexy to be balanced. It's not fun to not have drama. It's not fun to have chaos and watch other people suffer.
Sure.
We are weird, voyeuristic humans, but if you can live from that place, it's amazing how unstoppable you will become to constantly create more of what you really do desire and want when you actually get what you need first. And people are afraid of what they need first. That's why I'm a very acquired taste for certain leaders, is because I actually will tell you we're going to get what you want, but in reality, you're going to get what you need first, and then you can build from there what you want. And that's the thing that human beings are trying to bypass. I want, but I'm going to slide away from what I actually need. Because I desire more over here first. I want to make more money. I want to scale. I want to be known on Twitter. I want to be seen. I want to be heard. But here's the thing. My success came because I honored my health. I honored my relationship to myself first. I honored my faith. I honored what it is that I was meant to be doing in the world. I found resources and people outside of me that challenged me and pushed me and made me face a battle and fight and scream through pain that I carried, stress that I was under, so I can experience what it's like to have a set point of not reacting to the world around me. And then from there, building a business, building what it is I do to influence and impact other people at the top so they can go out to the world and do the same thing, this natural ripple effect. I live honoring my relationship with my wife. I honor my health. I honor the people that are around me. That then stems into the power that I have to create more success for myself. And I realize that when I'm not getting what I want, I have to look at myself first and go, is my house in order? Is it me? Because there could be influences outside of me that could be helping make that possible. But at the end of the day, we need to stop and go, wait a minute, what is it that I'm still not dealing with or looking at or addressing head on first that is influencing my ability to break through to this next level, to make more money, to have more opportunity? And that's the piece I want people to walk away with.
And it feels like people are like, work is first and everything just kind of falls in place, right? After that.
Right.
And I don't know where that came from. And, I'm from the Midwest, born and raised. So, we have this work ethic where it's so funny because like you work all day and then you come home and then you just basically either are in the yard working, you're fixing something, right? And in my mind, it's black or white again. This is this is where I struggle with this.
I think it's good though. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to add that I think where it came from really was the fact that back in your day and even in my parents' days is there was more structure and containment for human beings. this is, I think, there's nothing wrong with having some black and white. We need structure. Look at our world right now in comparison. We don't have enough containment anymore. Everybody is just
Sure.
free to do whatever they want, express whatever they want, say whatever they want. And now look what's happening as a byproduct is so much dysfunction. It's spewing out into the world. And then we're rewarding that dysfunction. And then when you try to contain people, they react to you. You don't, my freedoms, my rights. It's like, hold on a second. The reason why we built this work ethic the way we did, which is nothing wrong with that, is because it was a healthy containment of structure, family dynamics, doing good things out in the world, getting to experience the life that you desire. There was nothing wrong with a hard day's work and having that structure and discipline first, but people lost their way with that. They flipped it on its head and saying, well, I want whatever I want first. It's all about I, me. There's no containment. And think about the US Constitution. It's a framework, a containing document for us. Our rights are not limitless and without consequence. But we think that they are. We think we can do whatever we want. And same thing goes with our personal individual performance. You need proper containment so you can feel the freedom within that containment. Freedom comes from containment. It doesn't come from anarchy and boundlessness. You need that. So I commend you growing up in that atmosphere. But I think you've recognized over the years, you need to find some balance where you can open up into the gray a little bit so you can experience the expansion of your container, that's the byproduct of success. You grow into that, but you still stay in these containing standards and principles and values. Couth, decency, decorum, all of those components that make you a good human being to live this life.
Well, and each one of us has our own convictions. So that's where it's unique, because I may think one thing and you may think another, right? And I don't mind talking about it. But the sad part is like, if we can't continue a relationship because we don't agree on the same thing.
Well, that's the thing, discernment. I'll go back to the discernment piece. There are some things though that you can say, you know what, I can see what you're doing, and I don't, it's not a disagreement. It's just the fact that, okay, there's just dysfunctional behavior here. Or, people say it's just a matter of differencing in politics and opinion. Sometimes that's not. Sometimes it's pathology. And if you can not look and see the pathology of somebody or something going on in the world, and you're okay with that, something must be going on with you. And we have to start making the discerning understandings and differences with what's going on, rather than just getting caught up in, again, that too black and white thing where it's just a matter of opinion and perspective. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's just an utter truth one side sees that the other side does not, and we have to be willing to actually embrace and address that, and vice versa, and go through those motions together, because we're on a bad path right now as human beings, and we're struggling, and everybody's focusing on, well, how do I get mine out of this chaos before it all falls apart? And this is like, dude, that's not success, and that's not happiness. So
no, and it's kind of funny. I think about speed limit, right? If the speed limit's 70, some people think 70 is the limit, and some people think 70 is like the entrance. That's just the minimum speed, right? So, and again,
see Phoenix,
exactly. I mean, my gosh, in San Diego, Milwaukee, Chicago is brutal when we go down through there. It's just 6 lanes, and people, especially
100 miles an hour.
Oh man, if you have a different license plate and you're in the wrong lane, you are going to get you're going to get a speaking to. So
down here in Phoenix, the same way. It's 55 coming into the city, and people are doing 90. So it's okay,
right? And you're the bad guy because you're following what the rule says. So
I'm the bad guy because I'm doing 60. You know what I mean?
Exactly. 10 over is no longer enough. You're still, still getting an evil eye. So
it's crazy how it works. People it's funny. People like to push boundaries, but they don't like it when the boundaries are placed on them.
Sure. Well, you must have had a ton of boundaries in the Army. I mean, there must have been and again, as a non-military person, I have my own vision of it, and it's probably somewhat skewed, but I'm thinking like 24/7, you were told what to do and you were told how to do it, and you didn't really get to think much. That's what I think as a civilian. I don't know how accurate. Is that accurate in that?
To a degree. I will say that there are democratic principles in the military, but it is an autocratic system. So if you think about being in the military, I look back and go, being a leader in the military wasn't as hard as it may have felt, or what people think about it when you're looking from the outside in. But yes, you have your structure, you have your discipline. There are rules and regulations. The Uniform Code of Military Justice is a completely different set of rules to the civilian world. You mess up in the military, it's a lot worse than if you do mess up with the police out here in normal society. But
Sure.
what they do is they teach you and they give you structure so that you can learn how to become a problem solver, a decision maker, a leader, even as a private. You learn those skills, you learn that you get the leeway, the latitude to do that. You will be disciplined and you will be contained, but it's properly so that you can evolve. You can learn the job above and then below you as you grow in leadership. So aside from the autocratic aspect of, yes, we have orders, yes, they tell us what we're going to do. When we're running on a team, let's say in my case, being in a 60 millimeter mortar gun team, company level for a combat infantry airborne regiment. So we look at it as we have our orders. They come down from high, commander, first sergeant, it goes down to the platoon leader, and it goes right into, you know, the NCOs and then us into our team. We take those orders and then we sit there together and we work on what that order really represents. Do we have ideas? Do we have thoughts? Hey, here's the op order or the mission plan, but let's have some input on, it's kind of like calling audibles in football. We need to know if, yeah, the mission might think we're going to go this way, but we need to have team input to make sure that when we go set up our gun systems in Afghanistan, we got a combat operation, we're getting called for fire because we got troops in contact. We got to make sure that we are constantly evolving and adjusting. You don't do that if you're being told what to do 24/7 without any ability to make decisions or perform. So it becomes this balance of black and white structure, but also some gray where they give you latitude to learn and have input. Hey, sir. Hey, sergeant, check this out. Here's what I'm thinking. I know we're firing these rounds down range, but hey, what I'm seeing on the map or what I'm hearing on the radio, we need to adjust a little bit over here because I'm telling you something's going to come from that place. Great, no problem. Hey, thanks a lot, Corporal McGraw. We got to move it out this way. Good. And then we become these really well-functioning machines because we train that way. We operate that way as a team. We may not like each other back in garrison, but in combat, in operational aspects, we are in a place where it's democratic/autocratic in management, and you learn how to function in a very powerfully balanced way by giving people, even the privates, even the lower level guys, a little latitude to speak up so they don't feel like they have to shut their mouth and just do what they're told. I want, as a squad leader, I want my guys to go, hey, check it out, Corporal McGraw. I was just thinking, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
You know what? I like that idea. I'm going to think about that, but we're going to keep going the way we're going to go. Or, you know what? You're right. Switch it.
Sure.
See what I mean? And you learn to discern the difference in combat. So that's how
I would have never known. That was the total blind spot for me, Wylie. I would have never have known if I was a private that I had any influence, any value, you know, probably because of what Hollywood shows, you know, and they show it just to the opposite of what.
Sometimes we do. You know, we do tell them to shut up and do what they're told. It's like, I got told shut up and do what I'm told, because those are those moments where you shut up and do what you're told.
Yeah.
But there are other times where you have the space to go, you know what, I can speak up if we're in the position to do so. If we're in the middle of a gunfight,
yeah,
I don't want to hear anything. We're in the middle of a gunfight. Do your job.
Yeah, exactly.
Do what you're told. But if we're kind of like calmed down or we're figuring things out, speak up. Don't be afraid to. And I think we get a lot of that in the world today is people in companies. I have a friend of mine who runs a couple of companies, and he says, look, he was a submarine officer during the Cold War. He had 7 tours, 100 days under the water in a nuclear submarine. And he said every single person mattered on that sub, even the guy that threw out the trash. But when shit hit the fan, he said, you batten down the hatches, it became autocratic, you do what you were told. But if you had ideas, I'm going to listen to you. He runs his companies that way. I want my people to come up and feel free because I want to value my team. My team matters. I heard an old Sergeant Major say one time, you know what? At the end of the day, great leadership is all about how you take care of your team members. I work for you. You don't work for me.
Right.
That's leadership. Even though you are the one in charge, you're really working for your team.
Yeah.
They respect you differently when you have that attitude.
Wow. That is so cool. As we land the plane today, I want to just, ask you, there's somebody listening right now that is kind of really intrigued by this. You know, they're just kind of in that spot where they're not sure what to do. What would your tip of the day or tip of the week be? What would you speak to that person, whether it's something we said or it's in your heart right now to that person? How would you encourage them?
there's so many different things I could say. You got to be willing to first admit that you yourself have not addressed the truth about what might be standing in your way. That's the hardest thing for human beings is to slow down, like we talked about in this conversation,
Yep.
and look at themselves and go, okay, I want these things. I'm working hard 24/7. I'm an entrepreneur. I work the 80 hours to avoid working the 40. Okay. I'm grinding my butt off, but I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not satisfied. I maybe feel unfulfilled. Why isn't the world giving me what it is? I was taught hard work pays off. That's not true. There are people that work hard 80 hours a week and make 50 grand a year, and they never get anywhere past that because it goes so much further beyond the hard work.
Yeah.
And you got to stop and go, okay, where is it that I might be lacking in my own life personally as a man or a woman? Maybe looking inward, going, what stresses am I carrying that are influencing my focus, my ability to discern whether or not I'm in a good place, or I have the right resources around me, or the right team members, or maybe I'm even in the right place in the first place. I've had so many people in the past, I want your audience, that these people that are thinking this way. I've had so many people that you might look up to, you see on TV that I've met over the years, who, when I end up doing work with them, when I become that proverbial battle buddy or demon slayer that optimizes who they are, their lives, finally getting to where it's amazing how when we strip down everything, they tell me I'm not doing what I actually have always wanted to do. I built this business thinking this is what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
I have made $100 million in my career and I'm miserable.
Yeah.
And they find out, wow, all I really wanted to be doing was building hot rods.
Sure.
Why didn't I become a hot rod builder when I was younger? Oh my gosh, that's right. Because of this, and this influenced my decision. I didn't slow down enough to realize what is it that I actually am. I'm going to have a conversation today with a guy around the difference between having a mission versus just running a business. We're going to talk about the contrast. And I want your people that you just asked me to talk to hear that go, where is it in me that might be limiting my ability to perform where it is that I want to perform, how I want to optimize, where it is I want to go with my life and my business. If I can get real with myself and I can address hard truths that I have not looked at, I can find the problem-solving answers that I've been looking for there when I strip down, when I remove, versus this incessant need to buy another book or hire another coaching program or get caught up in line doing Dr. Google researches for different things. Learn to slow down, strip down, remove things first, figure out what truths you're avoiding, the hard truths, the most uncomfortable truths, getting to the core of those first, and then you'll see how the answers start showing up a little bit more naturally for you. And then go out and keep doing the hard stuff by getting pushed in a place where it scares you. If you're not scared, you won't change. If it doesn't shock you, it won't shift you. That's the key.
Yeah.
Truly.
That's jam-packed with great information. And, if you don't know your blind spot and you don't don't have the discernment that Wylie's talking about, find somebody, to be able to reach out to connect with on this, because this is a really powerful piece. Like I said, as I do my research on blind spots, man, it's crazy how many there are. We all have them. And, it's helpful for somebody to say, hey, do you know that you're doing this? Whatever this is, hopefully we all have somebody in our world to be able to do that. Probably not a spouse, probably not somebody on your team, right?
May I say something to that?
Sure.
Just the last piece. I think what it is, what I realized over the years too, was even in war or being in sports, or even now doing what I do for these very big personalities out in the world, is staying connected to faith. Doesn't matter what the structure of your faith looks like. I think the biggest piece is we've detached from our own personal. What is your personal faith? Like I look at it as, when we detach from that kind of power source, we get lost. And we try to find it more so on our own. And then we look to others who they themselves are lost. And then we're constantly like that proverbial blind leading the blind. I keep saying we're proverbial, but I want people to hear that. Faith is a key, I think, a huge piece that's missing in the world. And again, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter who, what it is you believe or what it is you connect to. Connect to it. Connect to that power source, because for me, I found there's so much peace in the fact that I feel anchored to whatever that looks, sounds, or feels like in your head. It's seriously amazing how that does make a difference. It keeps you kind of in a grounded place. And then you go out into the world and you go, okay, now I'm pulling in the right things that actually help me face whatever it is I need to go through, these tribulations, these trials.
Right.
And I'm not afraid of it, even though I might feel the fear come up. I realize fear means I'm changing. Fear means I'm going through something.
Yeah.
Let me embrace it. And I like it. I like people that push. That's why I like to exercise the way I do. I like to be around people that are very challenging, because again, it makes you really step up and keep stretching your capacity to be your best.
Well, and as we ended, I mean, personal peace, I mean, what better two words, you know, I mean, and again, whether it's an island and you're laying in the sand, whatever personal peace is to you, you know, I wish that we, in third grade, it was fun to think and pretend and
Sure,
you know, right. But as we got older, we stopped
yeah.
doing that. And it's
Yeah.
like, man, you know, I'm trying to find ways for myself, Wylie, to get back to that, where it's like, hey, I wish this, why wish it? Just, you know, either do it or get in that mind space where at least you're able to enjoy it, you know, mentally. So,
well, I highly recommend people that are listening to, if you want, I have a video that I made on the homepage of the website, wyliemcgraw.com, that just literally talks about what we just talked about today, is like how we come into this world, how we're plagued by stress, chaos, pain, trauma. We all are. We're all born into that. It's generational. But our job is to strip everything down, to battle those demons, as I call them, so we can experience that personal peace. Because personal peace and freedom is the epitome of what success is defined by. If you can't have that, then what's the point of making money?
yeah.
What's the point of having a business? So you can numb yourself and cope. You can just deal with, rather than experiencing that true internal like set point of, you know what, this is what life was meant to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So your website is wyliemcgraw.com, and it's WYLIE is how you spell Wylie, and then McGraw, MCGRAW.com. So if someone wants to connect with you, if they're really intrigued by what was happening here today, what's the best way? Is that just for them to go to your website? Is that the best?
The website was built after 12 years of being behind the scenes. The pandemic hit. I came out of the shadows because I realized that, you know, my work is needed out in the world and people have been asking for it.
Sure.
So the website, we spent time, basically everything on there I wrote, and it's all philosophies that I discovered through my life's journey and experiences with other people, being from the military, leadership. There's a couple white papers on there that talk about some of the things we discussed today as well, the difference between getting help versus being optimized. Again, there are videos on there as well for other philosophies, other insights, valuable information. I started my own podcast as well, Wise Words of Whiskey with Wylie McGraw, where I interview other high achievers to talk about low-key conversations on high performance living, giving them insights to attain peace with their success and finding ways to optimize who they are without all the hype and all the typical like mind grind that we kind of go through. So those are typical places. I've got LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. We started Twitter and Instagram. We're building out right now as well. But again, I'm not a social media guru, so I'm allowing people to support me in that process. But those are the places they can go if they want to have more conversation or figure out what's next.
So is whiskey mandatory on the podcast for you?
It is. It's my love of the craftsmanship of whiskey making. I grew up in a Scottish family. My mother's Native American, so whiskey was always used as an ancient healing ritual, medicine, if you will. So there's medicinal properties to whiskey. In Gaelic, it's a surname for the water of life in Irish and Scottish culture. So for me, I do send the bottles of whiskey to my guests, and we do a little tasting. I don't drink a lot. But it's a little tasting for the audience. We kind of break the ice. We let the audience hang out, sip a little whiskey, talk about the nosing, the tasting of it, and then we go into the conversation around the point that I want to discuss. So it's really fun to kind of combine the love of whiskey and high performance living together. I've got some professional athletes coming on, military generals coming on the show. I've got some other really cool business leaders, et cetera. And we just really make it a good environment for people to kick back, relax, pour themselves a dram, and hang out with us.
Drop that wall by putting a little alcohol in there. That's brilliant. Get them to, just poquito, right? Just a little bit.
Hey, quiet the demons a little bit so we can actually infect you with good information.
There you go.
That really does kind of help shift your perspectives to go, you know what, I really do need to face the truth and do something different, because attaining peace with success should be your only goal. If your goal is to make money at all costs, then you're only performing as a fraction of who you really are, and that's where you're going to end up in trouble down the road.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Wylie, for hanging out with us.
I appreciate you having me, brother.
I learned
Yeah.
a ton and can't wait to keep learning from you. And again, if you're listening, please don't jump into your next piece. Just, do what we said 3, 4, 5 times. Slow down, write one thing down that you really took away from today that you want to commit to actually making a difference. Otherwise, the last 45 minutes or so, really, it'll just go in one ear and out the other. So please make yourself available to some of the stuff that just got shared from Wylie. And thanks again, Wylie, for all you're doing. And again, can't wait to keep learning more from you.
I appreciate that, brother. Thanks for having me.